For years, the firearms industry has toggled back and forth between red dots and magnified optics. And even those with red dots are still putting magnifiers behind their dots, and for good reason. PID beyond 100 yards or even hitting refined small targets at 50 or further out can be difficult. And with that in mind, people are starting to upgrade their weapon lights to something like this Mod Light OKW so they can see and shoot further at night. But that also begs the next question. What about distance with night vision? Guys, we're going to be talking about this Knight's Armament PVS30, but first we have to thank our 3 sponsors of this channel. We have the Sonoran Desert Institute, we have Sportsman's Guide, and of course, Wideners for the Ammunition. If you guys want to sponsor us and support us in your own way, you can check out our web store where we have a whole ton of merchandise available, as well as Patreon where you get videos just like this ahead of time and early access to some of our content. Now, let's get into this Knight's Armament PVS30. What is this thing? It's commonly called a clip-on, and it replaced some of the original night vision scopes where they were actually putting night vision into their day optic, which was great at the time, but of course then you had to actually remove that night optic during the day. Did it return to zero? We didn't always know. Now, there's a lot of different clip-on options out there. This one from Knight's Armament comes in at the $11,000 to $14,000 price point, which is bonkers. The reason that this one is so expensive, for one reason, is because it will stay on and retain zero and actually function up to a 50 BMG, which is a whole ton of recoil that pretty much nearly no civilian is actually going to need. And that brings us to the question that I had: does a civilian actually need a night vision clip-on? If you don't need it, is it actually something worth considering, especially over something like a $9,000 to $11,000 piece of dual tubes, or something like what I have here, a PVS14? You can get something like this for $5 grand new, white phos, or even cheaper if you're getting it green or something that's refurbished. So there's some other downsides and some upsides. Let's touch on those before we run our experiments and evaluate how this thing will actually stack up for the average civilian. All right, gents, so this PVS30 is supposed to have a return to zero of, well, 1 MOA. And additionally, because you're introducing all this other glass and parallax, I'm working on the wrong side here, all this other glass, there's a lot of material that you're looking through. So it once again should only have up to 1 MOA of point of impact shift. So with that in mind, you are gonna have to pay attention to zeroing your day optic. And then if you put this big piece of night vision up front, shooting it at night to confirm, hey, I did shift 1 MOA this direction or 1 MOA that direction, and then having turrets and the ability to actually make those adjustments if need be. This weighs in at 3 pounds, 2.9 actually, which is starting to get pretty heavy, especially when it's out on the front of the gun. You're getting a lot of leverage up there pulling down against you. Comes in at about 9 inches long, so it is not a small piece of equipment. That being said, it is giving us the ability to actually magnify through night vision, which is quite a bit different than actually looking through our typical night vision at no magnification at all. So that's one thing that we're actually gonna test. We're gonna test PID. Nick is gonna actually film through this whole Leupold Mark 6 and the PVS30 and see if he can actually PID the difference between a phone and a gun, and then we're gonna compare that with typical night vision, like a PVS14 or dual tubes. The other thing that I'm curious about is how this actually stacks up just shooting a few rounds at distance and where this really starts to shine. So I'm going to run drills at varying distances with both a laser on an 11.5 gun and then shooting with this at about 2 times magnification. There's a ton more specs that we can actually get into, but I'm curious to start shooting because the specs are great, but how does it actually run on your gun? All right, gents, we're gonna run the same drill. We're gonna go 3 rounds onto this T Targets reduced C-zone piece of steel. We're at 20 yards. We'll go 3 rounds and see what the time is. We'll compare and then we'll step back. .108. Wild, that works. All right, let's check the next one. 2 things. Number 1, obviously I would be using a passive dot, but that's not the test that we're doing. Number 2, I hate this, but it works. Nick, you good?
Yep.
Stand by. .177. 249. One miss. 475. We'll get more to this in a little bit, but night vision works awesome for things that are moving or known shapes that have some ambient light, illuminating it to some degree. And even at 100 yards, this piece of steel, it's a small piece of steel, reduced C-zone. I can't confirm that what I think I'm seeing, a contrast in color through these, I think these are Drew's L3 white phos tubes unfilmed, that target is what I think it is. So I'm gonna take this magnification and confirm that target is where I think it is and what I think it is. That's it. And it's still grainy, but I can at least tell with magnification. So there's one upside, but there's another downside that we'll talk about in a few minutes. Let's finish this drill. It's not gonna happen. Not with this light setting. I pulled that last shot, that was me. The hardest part was actually PIDing it. I got trigger happy and wanted to drive that trigger. Recoil went up and to the left. It is what it is. Well, it probably doesn't help that I was using a C-class laser, but all that being said, I wouldn't be shooting beyond 200 yards unless I'd actually spent serious time with my laser and illuminator at 200 yards. PID is a whole nother question, especially under nods. With this setup, let's see what I can do. I left the time box in the car, so we'll just actually sling some rounds at 200 and see how easy or hard it is. It's so cool. Very doable. All right, let's play with PID. And for our next trick, we're gonna have me go down to the 50 and 100 yard line. We're gonna look through this PVS30 at about 3 times magnification. We'll leave it at that magnification. Nick will film through there as best as we can, and we'll show you what it looks like. We'll test PID, or positive identification, with what's in my hand. You're either looking for a magazine, mimicking a cell phone, or a pistol. We'll start where I actually hold the item up against my black hoodie, and then off to the side, and then doing something body language related with said item. We'll also test that with just dual tubes, standard L3 unfilmed, and we'll see if we can see any difference in PID with magnification through a green PVS30.
All right, go ahead and pull whatever item you would like. Kind of looks like a phone from here. Do some sort of body language movement with it. Yep, I'd say it looks like somebody is on their phone from this distance. Alright, well obviously the next one's going to be a gun, but let me pull it and you tell me if you're actually able to tell that it is a firearm at 50 meters. Ready? Ready. Oh yeah, clear as day. Especially when you had it down next to your side, I can clearly tell it's a handgun of some sort. How about when it's up next to my body like this? Sort of, just because I know what it looks like when someone's holding a handgun. When you turn to your side, it kind of disappears, but if you blade it off your body in any way, it contrasts on your jacket so much that I can see the outline of it. All right, folks, still at 50 yards. We're looking through, once again, those Gen 3 white phos L3 unfilmed dual tubes. Nick, you let me know when, and I will pull something out of my pocket. All right, have at it. I can see that when you have your hands in front of you, but honestly, it could look like your hands are in like a hand warmer or something. I can't really tell, like, if there's an actual item in your hand.
And if I hold it out and away from my body?
I'm gonna go ahead and guess that's the PMag from here.
Why don't you turn on that Surefire Vampire and see what you can see?
Honestly, it blows you out so much that I can't. It honestly disappears, kinda. Yeah, I mean, it looks like you're holding a gun at that point, but even if you were holding something else and acting like it was a gun, I wouldn't be able to really see from here.
Yep, that one was the pistol. For the sake of consistency, let me pull the PMag out, and then we'll go back to 100.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you hold it out like that, I would guess it was a gun.
All right, well, even at 50, it can be really hard to tell. Let me kick it to 100, we'll see what we can see, and then we'll wrap this thing up. All right, guys, we kicked this thing back to 100 meters. I can't see the camera at all. I assume Nick is out there, but I'm gonna pull something out of my pocket, and you guys should be able to tell if you can PID at all. Nick, you ready?
Send it. I think that's the PMag designed as a phone from here, especially contrasting against your jacket.
And how about if I hold it away and off my body?
I can't completely, I mean, I still see that there's something lack of contrast in your hand, but I can't exactly tell what it was. I mean, if you were to make some sort of body language to resemble holding a handgun, I wouldn't be able to, like, tell, I don't think, from here if that's what it was or not.
All right, so you can't tell, you wouldn't be taking a shot. Let me move on to the next one. And then, since you have a Surefire Vampire light on there, maybe you kick light on after this and confirm with illumination. But first, let me move on to the next one.
With it that close to your body, I can't really even tell you have anything in your hand right now.
All right, and if I hold it out and away from my body, how about this?
Looks somewhat similar to the PMag a little bit, but it does have more of just how your hand is holding it. I can kind of tell that you have it. I mean, it resembles the firearm more than the PMag did.
Why don't you kick that Surefire Vampire on and see if you can tell?
All right, stand by. Yeah, it got a lot more light on you now. It's spilling on the ground in front of you just a hair, but it contrasted out a lot more than without illumination. So I can definitely tell that you have your hand and your body language is in the. Yeah, I definitely saw it when you went over your jacket. Let me crank this up to 6 power and see if I have better visual. Oh yeah, I can tell super easy that you have a gun in your hand at 6 power, and your eyes are glowing.
All right, well, I have zero confidence in zero magnification, but let's swap over to the dual tubes and see what we can see.
All right, let me take this light off and see if I can see anything at 6 power. I mean, yeah, I can. Your left hand is more boxy, and your right hand definitely has more of an L shape, like a handgun. So I can still somewhat tell what it is, but it's a little bit more difficult without the illumination.
That makes sense. Well, an OKW would certainly work, but if you are trying to not turn anything on, obviously you wouldn't be using your Vampire light. But with body language, obviously this is going to give it away.
Oh yeah, clear as day. Yep.
Let's check that zero magnification through just standard head-borne night vision.
Honestly, I can't even see anything. Maybe if I hit this If I hit the Vampire, I can see you better. I still can't really even tell what that is from here. It just looks like something black in your hand. Not a clue what it is.
Well, I think that's what we guessed. Let's pull this thing together and draw our conclusions and wrap it up. Okay, so what are our actual thoughts on the PVS30? I've been shooting with this guy for a couple months now, actually, because Mac Johnson, we don't own this, by the way, I should have said that at the outset. Mac Johnson, a buddy, was able to loan this to us. We've been playing with it for a little while. I have shot with this thing a fair amount. And here are my thoughts, and as well as Nick's and Drew's, we talked about this. With the fact that you have to be wise with your finances, and being that you need to be prepared across a lot of different fields, this one device for $11,000 to $14,000, in my mind, doesn't give one individual the same benefit as buying something like dual tubes, or 2 or 3 PVS14s for the same price point. Another problem with this is that it has to go onto a gun to be used at its fullest potential, which means that when you are looking at anything, searching or trying to PID, even at distance, you're not pointing a firearm at someone or something. Granted, if the world falls apart and Red Dawn happens, yeah, that's not necessarily a big problem. But this is so expensive and it's only one unit and it's heavy, I just don't see the upsides. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, yeah, but I can see something in PID better at distance. I can shoot further at night without turning stuff on. I agree, but you want to know what else does that as well? And maybe even a little bit better at this point? Thermal. Thermal's come a really long way. We have some video concepts that we're working on. It takes a little while to make content like that. Quality for us to bring those points out to you. This is a very fun tool to have. And if you are a big PRS shooter, or maybe you own a ranch somewhere that has coyote problems, yeah, this is a phenomenal tool. But again, at the price point, it's pretty steep, especially when you could go pick up some thermal. I'm not saying don't go buy one of these. If you have loads of cash, sure, go ahead and spend your money and have fun with it. But I believe that there are better tools for the average civilian to spend $11,000 to $14,000 on. Keep in mind, ammo prices fluctuate all the time. Keep in mind that firearms, good functioning firearms, they're expensive, but they're not quite as expensive as $10,000, $14,000. Water purification systems, food storage, an extra vehicle or extra vehicle parts, dirt bikes, so on and so forth. There's so many things that you can spend some of your money on. It's super rad and it's a fun toy. I understand why the military uses them. For the average individual, I just don't see it. That being said, guys, throw your own opinions in the comments section. Maybe we missed something. I'm curious, and I also know that there are thousands of people that have played with these or used these in the real world, and I just haven't had that time or that experience. So please let us know. With that being said, go spend some time with your family and get off the internet. Thanks, take care.
Cool.